As a trans person, I've always been interested in horror. While my peers watched horror movies and felt scared, I often watched them and felt comforted. And I'm not alone. Over the years, I've met countless other trans people who have found comfort in the horror genre. But what is it about horror that draws so many trans people to the genre? What is it about the demonic possessions and grotesque transformations that make so many of us feel so seen? I talked to the researcher Ty Williamson to find out more.
So the three case studies that I'm looking at in my thesis is Hereditary by Ari Aster, Titan by Julia de Cornell, and We're All Going to the World's Fair by Jane Schoenbrunn. Jane Schoenbrunn's work, they looked at trans youth and sort of the experience of the internet, watching YouTube horror films, and how a lot of trans kids really got into that scene because they saw sort of reflections of themselves. They saw an exploration and an escape of their sort of body and identity, and going into this digital world and being someone different and transforming and not really knowing who you are. With Hereditary, I look at sort of the themes of possession and how this sort of spirit is desperate for a male body. So I sort of follow with the physical representation of possession and transformation of their body. And with Titan, again, it's a lot of sort of body horror, and it's sort of an expression of, I guess, gender euphoria and passing and going into trans themes that are not necessarily human. I look at sort of transfuturism, transhumanism.
Horror has always been used to explore different political and social ideas, whether that's racism in Jordan Peele's Get Out, radicalisation through the media in David Cronenberg's Videodrome, or female sexuality and empowerment in Julia de Cornell's Raw. Currently, trans rights are the hot topic in politics, with 4,780 transgender hate crimes reported in 2023/24, a significant rise from the 2,799 reported in 2020/21. Recently, the UK has seen the ban of puberty blockers for under 18s, taking away a much-needed resource for young trans people. With trans rights and bodily autonomy being eroded, it is becoming increasingly easy to connect our own lived experiences to the horror narratives we know and love.
As horror develops, it's always commentating on what's going on around us, and right now it is a lot of commentary on trans people. So I feel like horror is moving towards that aspect of gender exploration.
After talking to Ty, I wanted to speak to someone writing their own trans horror stories.
I am William A. Wellman. I write and record a weekly horror fiction podcast centered on sort of queer themes called Hello from the Hallowoods. It's a show that delves a lot into gender identity and at the same time hosts a lot of vampires and ghosts and Frankenstein's monsters, sort of navigating life at the end of the world. It is sort of, at least speaking from, say, the events in the United States in the last couple of years, it's become kind of shockingly apparent that what we considered human rights and sort of hard-won, well-fought human rights could really be revoked at any moment without any remorse. And the feeling of being ostracized by your community, or hunted with torches and pitchforks, or cast out for a secret inner nature. These are themes that have resonated for decades with queer people, even when those stories were not explicitly about queer characters. And so I think it's somewhat natural that over time queer storytellers would latch onto that and kind of make it their own in some way.
We have a voice and we need to be listened to, whether it be political or, in the art world, is important because we have to be everywhere, because we are everywhere, but we just have to be seen more. And I want it to be seen. That's why I'm writing, is because I want to at least be one of the voices that is like, well, hey, hello, listen to us, because it's really important to me. And I think it's, that trans voices are eloquent, and they're just needed. They're just needed in the creative space.